The next Fireside Chat, which you don't want to miss, sponsored by Visa, is providing you with a front row seat to strategies and experiences from two powerhouse leaders. Stephen Williams, PepsiCo Foods North America CEO and Black Men Excel honoree, by the way, and FrankCooper III, the Chief Marketing Officer. Together, they bring a wealth of experience across industries embodying excellence in both leadership and innovation. Please join me, everyone, and welcome Stephen Williams and FrankCooper III, joined by our moderator, Black Enterprise CEO, Earl Butch Graves Jr.
Yeah. Well, good morning, everyone. Everyone enjoy that first session with DL? He was great. So, I'm delighted to have two people here who, and I say this not because they're sitting here on stage, but because I really believe this, are two of the smartest executives in corporate America that you're going to find, regardless of gender, race, or what have you. And they're, to my furthest left, Steve Williams, who you guys got a chance to meet with yesterday, or not meet with, but to celebrate, who was one of our Black Men Excel honorees, and at PepsiCo, and has had a storied career there at PepsiCo. And they introduced FrankCooper, who's to my immediate left, but they didn't name the company, but Frank is with Visa, and he's the Chief Marketing Officer for Visa Global Worldwide. So let me welcome the two of you. Let's give them a round of applause.
Thank you.
I want to jump right into it, but I'd like them to know a little bit about your guys' journey, right? And I'll start with you, Frank, because you didn't just wake up one day and become this global chief marketing officer at Visa, and they were like, oh, we have to fill this position. You know what? Let's go with Frank, or as I call him, my nickname for him, Black Frank. But they said, let's just go with Frank. And that didn't happen, but it was a journey all the way through that also included a time with entrepreneurship. So I'd like you to share with the audience a little bit about your journey to how you got to where you are now.
Yeah, sure. Well, Butch, thanks for having me. Appreciate that. And Butch actually does call me Black Frank, and he always signs off, "Stay black."
Stay black, Frank.
Yeah, which I say that's an easy thing to do. Look, I'll give you the shorter version of it. I know, because I could go on. So I went to Harvard Law. I thought I was going to teach law. That's what I was focused on. But then I was a summer associate in a law firm, and we were working on the case of Tetris. And I got a chance to go over to Russia, because a Russian scientist had created the game, and Nintendo and Atari were fighting with each other. I spent about a month and a half over there with a partner, and we got to know each other really well, because there's nothing to do in Russia except to go to depositions and spend time together. And he asked me one evening, he said, so what do you want to do? Why do you want to be a lawyer? What do you want to do? And I gave him all the reasons. And he said, hey, look, I've been practicing for 22 years. I've been in public practice and private practice. And the one thing I'm going to tell you, because you're at the very beginning of your career, is that figure out right now what energizes you. Not like a specific job, the thing that gives you energy and a sense of fulfillment, and connect that to your career. And so that changed my whole course. And so I loved entertainment, so I was in entertainment for a while. I was at two of the most iconic urban labels, both Motown and Def Jam. Switched into technology, did a technology startup. But I was at PepsiCo, and Stephen and I were both there. So at PepsiCo, that was really the transformative place for me. I was there for 12 years and kind of really found kind of who I was within PepsiCo in terms of being a business executive, but also with a knack for marketing. I was at BlackRock for a number of years, where I really got a sense of financial services. And over time, I was fortunate to work on some projects that people felt made them money. They're breakthrough. They're visible, highly visible, but the fact that it made money is what people actually remember. And then I got a call from Visa, and the thing is, at each of these places, which it's not like I knew anything about it. Like I didn't know anything about consumer packaged goods, nothing. Steve probably knows that, but I knew nothing about I knew nothing about financial services, nothing. And I didn't know anything about payments, the payments industry. But what I've learned as I moved across these different industries is how to come up to speed very, very quickly. How to understand the economics of an industry, how to understand how a particular company makes money, how decisions are made within a company, despite the org chart. And that's been the path I've taken, as I moved from industry to industry and company to company.
So Steve, and I'm going to come back to a conversation with the two of you on somewhat about navigating, but this is my friend from Tulsa, and I love that story in terms of that was showed yesterday in regards to where you came from, what have you, and what you got to. But would love to. I want to put it into context because I don't think everyone understands just how senior or how important the position you're in, because you head up all of PepsiCo Foods, right? And I forgot the stat I saw, but it was one of these things that said that every person has snacks on a PepsiCo food.
Yeah.
And I forget, it was once a week or once every X number of days. So in our mouths, as you're going to get different things, whatever it is that you're doing, every one of 315 million people is touching one of your products every single day.
That's right.
And that is really a tremendous position to be in. So congratulations again to you, Steve, for what it is you've done.
Thanks.
But as you said, you grew up in Oklahoma.
Yep.
So it wasn't, your journey. How do you go from being a young brother in Tulsa, Oklahoma, or not even Tulsa? That's the big city. You were in the
Close
smallest,
to Tulsa.
Yeah, close to Tulsa, to getting into this industry.
Yeah.
And then being able to navigate and find your way all the way up through the which we'll come back to, the trials and tribulations, to get to where you are today.
Yeah, that's great. First, I'm trying to figure out. I mean, I thought you loved me, man. Again, before lunch, after D.L. Hughley, and on stage with a good brother that I love, but he's gonna shine brighter. I love being here. I appreciate it. So here's what I would say. Small town, humble beginnings. Lived in Oklahoma for the early part of my life. Went to school in Oklahoma, met my wife in Oklahoma, joined Pepsi, left Oklahoma. Moved around the country in different roles. And I learned early at PepsiCo, and I firmly believe that anybody can be successful there. Now, it takes hard work, but what I will tell you, it is a company that appreciates diversity of thought, of talent, and you can thrive. And so I've had the opportunity. I learned early on that PepsiCo values several things. One, it's a massive global company, and one of the reasons I never left was because I always felt like I was leaving the company every time you moved into a different division, whether you're in the Gatorade division, whether you're in the Pepsi division, whether you're in the Frito-Lay division, whether you're in Quaker Foods, whether you were in a global role. These jobs, were very, very different because we run a geographic model and a BU model that allows you to do different things. And the things that PepsiCo values is, can you build brands? Can you influence large numbers of people? Because we have a lot of people, you got to be a good leader. And can you influence constituents that you don't control? And I've had the opportunity to have jobs in marketing, jobs leading big teams, jobs leading big customers, including, I think there are a few Walmart colleagues in the house. I led the global Walmart business for PepsiCo. And so a variety of opportunities, but I'll tell you, and you hit on it, but you don't just get there by being in the right place. You don't just get there by yourself. You've got to have sponsorship. I talk a lot about you can be a rock star in the closet, nobody's going to know who's playing the music. You've got to take jobs that give you an opportunity to have profile, you have the opportunity to take risk, because if you're not taking risk, it's not material. And that's how you get, and so I believe I wanted to take roles that gave me the experiences and the opportunity to prove that I could compete for the biggest jobs in the company. And you said it, I mean, it's a large job. I was laughing yesterday, you guys had 21 billion, it's actually 28 billion dollar company. It's massive, massive business. And it's a privilege to have an opportunity to do it, because we do touch so many households. We do create jobs, so many livelihoods. And companies don't give you jobs like that because it's because of your race. They give you a job like that because they think you can do it. They want somebody that's going to deliver results in a role like that. And so it's been a great journey. I didn't just grow up in Oklahoma and not do anything. Did a lot of jobs in the company and a lot of different businesses to learn the business from the inside out and check the boxes that were required, right, to be selected and appointed into a role like this.
So we have a fair amount of people here who work in corporate positions, and you guys have both deftly navigated corporate America. But I hear more and more people say, well, I want to be my authentic self at my job. And I said, okay, well, you can be your authentic self. You may not be at that job, but you can be your authentic self. And, and if you guys remember the Dave Chappelle skit he did, he goes, when keeping it real goes wrong. So I'd like you for both to sort of tackle this.
Yeah.
I'm sure at some point,
Yeah.
or many times within your career, something has happened, and you said to yourself, your inner voice was like, okay, now how am I going to, please, Lord, give me the strength to answer this question or to manage this situation, where you can allow for them to understand you can't do that, but also do it in a way that allows you to keep your job and so that they can respect you when it's finished. If you would walk through with that times that it's worked good, it's worked well, and maybe a time it didn't work so well, where you thought you had done the right thing, but in hindsight.
Yeah. So I'll give you how we think about it. I would tell you, PepsiCo, we used to talk about it, we called it dock presence. And so when you talk about be your authentic self, you have to be able to be on the dock at 4 a.m. with a man or a woman on the front line that's getting ready to go out in the market and deliver product. At 4 p.m., be able to be in the boardroom and get them to sign off on the $200 million CapEx, okay? And so you don't have the same style when you do that. You need to have high level of empathy and understand the audience that you're dealing with. Now I'll give you an example of what I was in this job probably 3 months, and I got thrown into the boardroom. And I dealt with board, but it was like in and out. This was a full day strategic review with the board. And I was quite confident that I knew the business cold, that I had everything I needed to be successful in that engagement. And it went terribly wrong. It went terribly wrong because I thought I knew how to nuance my way through what turned out to be a quite difficult discussion. And part of it was I came across, as I got feedback from the lead director is almost too confident in what I was doing for somebody who was brand new in the role. And so I just use that as an example of you have to really know your audience. You can't just be the same person in every room. You need to be your authentic self. I'm the same person every day, but I also try to flex a high degree of empathy and understanding of how I need to communicate, how I deliver the message that I deliver to the audience that I'm delivering to.
Yeah, and I agree with everything you're saying, Steve. And I think it's probably two issues you're raising. One is being your authentic self at work, and the other is kind of standing up and speaking your truth in front of an audience. The first, Dave Chappelle is a genius, by the way. I mean, when Keeping It Real goes wrong, if you guys haven't seen that skit, it's one of the funniest skits ever. But it's true. Sometimes you can take it too far. Or Wu-Tang Financial, where like I actually don't want Wu-Tang Clan to do my financial advice, right? And so, but what it shows you is that context matters.
Yeah.
And you're right, Steve. It's like it's not that you are not your authentic self, but we're all individuals and we're all part of a collective. That just kind of comes together, and you have to navigate that spectrum no matter where you are. And the question is, what is the core that you have that you're going to carry anywhere you go? And kind of going back to the litigation partner who gave me advice in Russia, I think that's the reason why understanding your why, your sense of purpose, what gives you a sense of fulfillment and energy is so important, because it gives you a compass no matter where you are. But put yourself in a different context, you're going to have to adapt to that context, or you're going to be rejected. And so not losing yourself within that is going to be important. I think the other thing is knowing your leadership. There's language, there's kind of a culture that happens in every single company. Mm-hmm. You have to understand that culture and how things are communicated. Some are more polite, some are more direct.
Yeah.
Say when I was in the entertainment business, it was very direct. I was at PepsiCo, I'd say it was fairly direct. I was at BlackRock, not as direct. But you have to read the cultural cues to know how you actually approach that. But to give you one example in terms of speaking up and it going terribly wrong, I thought we should make an investment in something that I thought would be the right thing for the company, the right thing for a specific community, and didn't read the room well, and just went kind of similar to you, Steve, like just went hard at it, and then but didn't understand why they didn't understand.
Yeah.
And so at that time I took the path of the logic of they just don't get it. That's never a great answer, by the way. They just don't get it. And what I've learned through that process, though, is that rather than conclude that they just don't get it, it's like, how do you actually understand why they don't get it? Like, what's the gap? And then how could I translate my language in a way that kind of crosses that chasm? And so that's what I try to do now. I'm not saying it's perfect every time, but I definitely try to understand the cultural environment I'm in, the context I'm in, the audience, the leadership team that I'm connecting to, but also translating in a way for understanding rather than speaking in a way that trying to persuade that what I'm saying is 100% right.
Yeah, I mean, I think you just pointed out to something that it's not enough to just say, well, I got it, they don't get it. I'm right, you're wrong, you don't get it. Not understanding the room that says, well, it's incumbent upon you to make sure that they do get it. Yeah. Otherwise, you won't get it, right? No matter how right you may be. But you said, we were speaking the other day, Steve, and you said something. My father used to say this to me all the time. He said, Butch, you got to be twice as good to get half as much. And I used to, you know how your parents say things to you when you were a child, and you're like, yeah, Dad, whatever. And then as an adult, you start to realize everything he said was 100% correct. Mm-hmm. And he would pound it into my head all the time. So you got to be twice as good to get half as much, and don't be angry about it. And you said the other day something to me where you said, Butch, I don't get any, excellence is mandatory. And I think it was an important thing the way you said it, so I want you to go a little bit deeper into it, but you said, listen, it's not even an option for us.
Yeah.
Right? Excellence is mandatory. Don't get mad at whatever, you got to be twice as good to get half as much. Excellence is mandatory. So speak a little bit to how you just realize, listen, I know I'm the best at what I do, but they may not know.
Yeah.
And I got to get them to that point so that they do know and realizing that excellence is mandatory. Or as you said before, you said, listen, Butch, you can't. They don't just hand these positions out.
Yeah.
And you can't get in a position and then go hide and say, I'm gonna be in this position. I'm gonna hide out here. They won't know that I'm here.
Yeah.
And then I'll retire nicely and I'll be in this. I've done a really nice job. What have you? So speak a little bit to that, if you would.
Yeah, it gets back to something I said earlier. It's about, take the jobs that get you the risk and do them better than anybody else can do them. And I mean, I got, long time ago, I got tired of being mad about how much more I had to do, right? And I just figured I was gonna, shadow box and, do push-ups while everybody else was sleeping. And I was gonna do the job so good, nobody wanted to do it after I got done with it, right? And so when a job comes open, I mean, these jobs, there's no interview process, you're appointed. And so people are watching what you do, how you lead, what you say, but mostly they're watching the results you are getting, right? And I talk to people all the time, you have to build a track record. Everybody has an accident, right? But did you have your seatbelt on and did your airbag deploy? Which is all the good stuff you've done before the bad stuff happened, right? And did you have a network that supported you in that? And so it is hard to get to the top of any company, right? It's hard, and there are few jobs. I was talking to a small group a couple of weeks ago. It's we call it venture. It's a group of high potentials that are aspiring to do, and we do these pods and have discussions with them about career. And I said, I'm just gonna put it plainly, right? We talk about, in work sometimes we talk about competition. Nobody wants to talk about competition. Ooh, is that a bad word? It's not a bad word. There's one of these jobs. I had to compete to get it. I wasn't mean about competing to get it, but I was playing to compete to get it. Right, that I didn't know up until the day I got the call, A, that the person that had the job was leaving, B, that I got the job. But I knew at some point a job would come open that I may have an opportunity to get. And so it is about how do you put yourself, and the person who put me in a job didn't look anything like me, right? And so that's, he's not even from the US, right? He's from Europe. And so, but track record mattered. My engagements with them mattered, and there were a line of people that could have done this job, but I don't think any of them could have done it like I'm doing it, right? But the organizations and individuals have to have confidence in your leadership capability and your impact on the business. Nobody's going to put you in a job like Frank's job. We were talking at the back. He's exceptional at what he does, and he's changed many things, so he's good at a whole lot. They didn't put him in that job because he wasn't exceptional. They didn't put him in a job because his name is FrankCooper and he happens to be black. They put him in a job because he's exceptional. He's built a track record of being exceptional. And that's how you should think about it. And you do. To do that, you then have to be better. Being better means doing more and being smarter and getting better results and having a profile. You can't just, there have been times in my career where I was like, man, had an option. Do I take this hard, thorny path, or do I take this cushy, I know I can go do it path? I want the thorny path, because the thorny path, I call it blow up or blow up. The thorny path, everybody's gonna know what you did. Everybody's gonna see it, it's material. It's large, and it's material, and it has a high risk profile. And if you're willing to do that, then maybe there's rainbow at the end, or maybe it's not. But you have to be willing to take those risks in order to get to the good stuff.
Frank,
I'm
going to use, I'm going to
First of all, I love the term blow up or blow up. I don't know if you guys caught that.
blow up or blow up.
Blow up or blow up. That's a great term. But look, I mean, I'll just touch a little bit on what Steve said too. For me, the way I look at it is, how do you become undeniable?
Yeah.
Because twice as good, exactly. But how do you become undeniable? And for me, I think about Visa. Visa has a market cap of $600 billion. It's been around for 60 plus years. It's in over 200 countries. It's processing $15 trillion of payments. A lot of good stuff is happening at Visa. A lot of people are very, very good at what they do. And so that's the benchmark already. How do you become undeniable in that environment? And for me, I think of three things. One is, for me, is mastery over fame. Like, you got to build a skill set and capabilities, hopefully transferable skills and capabilities. You got to build a skill set and capabilities. That's like baseline two. The second one is what you touched on, which I believe 100%. It's less about activities, it's about outcomes. Because sometimes I talk to some executives and I say, how's it going? How's the year going? They break out a long sheet of paper and it's like all the activities I did. It doesn't mean it's noise, actually. You have to think about what are the outcomes that you've generated that matter to that business. I think that's one. Then the last one is this. We all want excellence, but excellence requires help. No one does it alone. Someone's going to reach down to you, but you need a community of people that are going to help you move forward. And that's why, honestly, that's why I love this Black Men Excel conference, because the community. Some people think that if you're giving, somehow they think of empathy as a zero-sum game, right? So that if you're giving, somehow you're taking away opportunities for yourself. But it actually feeds on itself, and it allows you to tap into what I think is the most powerful currency in all this, and that is information. Like, you want to know how to navigate a certain corporate environment? There are people in this room that can help you do that. You want to know how to navigate a boardroom? There are people who can help you do that. Feel stuck somewhere, in your career? There are people who can help you identify what that is. But you need a community of people to help you do it. No one is going to do it. No one's going to sit in a dark room and figure it out themselves. And so that for me is this, master some skills, focus on outcomes, and then build a community of people that you help and that can help you move forward.
I'm going to pivot this for a moment, and then I'm going to open it up to questions, and you guys can begin to line up on whatever side it's going to be. But I want to pivot this to some of the young men that we have in the room. Mm-hmm. And we laughed about it the other day, but Frank, you joined Visa in the midst of coming out of the pandemic and what all that meant, right? And you guys have both discussed how success is a risky business, right? It's a risky business at best when you're there every day, when you're there and leaning in. And this is the challenge I find with some of the companies I interact with or work with or on the board of, and even my own company at times, and that is why the need to be present matters. And so this notion of I can work virtually from everywhere, and I can do this with just my iPhone and an internet connection.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna rise up through the organization, because they're going to recognize just by looking at my face, where I'm half dressed, but just with my face and what I'm about to do, that I am one of the key players for them on a longer term basis. And so it would be important, and I'd like to have the audience hear from you two on why it is important to be present.
Yeah.
Right? Because the notion that I can work one day a week at a job, and then the other days I'm going to be on a boat somewhere, I'm going to be shopping in a supermarket, and I'll call you in, but trust me, I'm there, I'm present. You're not present, right? Or as I like to say to my sales team, you don't give good phone.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you need to be with the person because your phone game is not as strong as you think
Yeah.
it is.
Yeah.
Anyway.
That's a good one.
Yeah, I'm not going to ride on that one.
Well, okay, you know, no.
But look, I feel like we're almost a foil for what Butch wants to do. Like, get your behind back in the office. You know what I mean? It's like, but look, I mean, here's my view on it: is that we're never going to go back 100% to everyone being physically in the office every single day. I don't think that's going to happen. I think that part of what the pandemic showed is that you can accomplish some things via video conference call. But I think what many people are missing, and the ones I'm most concerned about, those who are young and coming up, is that being physically present with each other allows you to pick up things that you cannot pick up on a video call. You know, it's apprenticeship in a way. So an apprenticeship happens not simply by someone saying, let me give you the recipe or the formula or these set of instructions or exemplar. It's actually watching people and seeing how they move and how they resolve things. You pick up things like that very quickly. The second thing is that there's a lot of wasted time when you have, and I'm not even talking about the people kind of dialing in with the virtual background and they're on the beach, right? I mean, that's like that's a whole different thing. But there's a lot of wasted time in these virtual calls, because if I can walk down to your office and talk to you for 5 minutes, I don't have to book a 30-minute Zoom call or Microsoft Teams call. We solve it right there. There's a certain fluidity and spontaneity that can happen when you're physically present. So I'm definitely on the side that I think that there are massive advantages to us being physically present. We're not evolved as human beings yet where we can just kind of, physically understand and communicate with each other across wide distances. We need to be physically present, and I think that's an important piece. And especially for younger executives, I really would encourage anyone kind of coming into a company or an industry, spend time physically there, because you're going to learn more just by watching than you will by being on a Zoom call.
Yeah. Context matters a lot too. I'll tell you, and I'll give a quick story, and then I'll answer how I think about it. When COVID first hit, I remember, like it was yesterday. We started doing these crisis calls, and I started called them Ask Me Anything, right? Calls, because people were scared. People were scared for their lives. People were scared for their livelihoods. I mean, you got to think about a company like ours, and I talked about in North America, we got 70,000 people, 60,000 of those either make, move, or sell something. So they're either in a factory, driving a truck somewhere, taking it somewhere, or putting it on store shelves. They never stopped working. They weren't on zone. They were essential. They were in the marketplace. So I have an organization that's on, and I'm sitting in my office on a screen. And by June, we had grounded the planes, and by June, I went to the board and said, I can't do this. I'm getting out. And if you saw some of the pictures, I literally started going to factories, going to the market, talking to people, and it made the world of difference because I was present. And I say that in the context of not just office workers, but those of us who have particularly large organizations that don't have some of the privileges that office workers do need to understand that too, right? Because it will drive a culture in your company of haves and have-nots. So that's one. And then two, for the people that are engaged. If you're new to the company, it's impossible. I mean, we hired so many people over the last, through that first tranche after COVID, new people coming, because a lot of people checked out. A lot of people like, I can't, I need to get a break. I need to go do something else. So we brought a lot of new people into the company. I remember when we started bringing people back to the office, we were doing these receptions. We would do stuff to get people. And I'm like, you who? You doing what? And so you're right, not being able to understand the special sauce of any company is people and culture. You can't learn the culture of a company on Zoom. You can't learn, or Teams, or whatever you're on. You just can't. And so I agree with you. I don't think there's a all or nothing, but I do think there are just some things that human interaction cannot be replaced with. And I think about, if we think about our careers, I mean, could you ever built a career, if it was a whole, I mean, I don't even know how that would have, how it would have worked. And so I would encourage you to really balance the needs for flexibility, as people say, and the need to, to excel. And if you're going to excel, again, you're going to have to do something meaningful, and maybe other people want to work at home 4 days a week. But I choose, right, the other path, and I think that's the path that's going to get you more alpha. Overall, is being present and having an impact on people.
Yeah. Okay, we're going to go to the last. You can start to line up if you have questions over here to my left, with the lady standing with the. But as they're lining up, I want to ask one question, because family, both of you are family men.
Yeah.
And I would be remiss if I didn't get an opportunity for you all to speak about the importance of family in your ability to be successful.
Yeah.
And to navigate what you've had to navigate by having a family, that was there to be supportive of you and help you along the way.
Yeah, certainly. I tell Christy every day, I would have been in a ditch somewhere if it wasn't, if I wouldn't have met her and, got me calmed down and had an opportunity to build a wonderful family and a wonderful life. I will tell you, I talked a little bit last night, when you're doing push-ups and shadow boxing and you're gone a lot, there's some sacrifices. And I would tell you, you have to take time to nurture your relationships. And if I don't leave you but with one thing from this week, I'll tell you, one of, I wouldn't call him a sponsor or mentor, I would say maker, is Steve Reineman. He was the former chairman of PepsiCo, and he used to do a leadership retreat at the Darden School in Virginia, where he went to graduate school, and it was his last one. He didn't tell us it was going to be his last one, but it was kind of a boot camp for newly minted VPs. And at the end of that session, he gave us a book, and it was one of his personal friends, Eugene O'Kelly, who was the CEO of KPMG. And the book is called Chasing Daylight. And I would just tell you, it changed the way I interacted with my family. And you talk about being present. We started really intensively, a daughter and a son, and doing these perfect moments is one of the concepts of the book, these perfect moment engagements where we would, stuff like Vatican on Christmas Day, Venice for New Year's, right? Doing these things that built strong memories in a collective with our family. And it literally changed the way, gave me energy to go do what I needed to do and push through and go back to doing push-ups and doing what I needed to do to get to the top. But they are an amazing family, and I don't know, what I'd do without them.
Man, while you doing push-ups and shadow boxing, I'm sipping champagne and eating caviar. I got to change my game a little bit here. Look, I said earlier, excellence requires help, and I've been the beneficiary of so many people that have helped me along the way. But the true blessing for me has been my wife, Nina Whittington Cooper. And people say that a lot, your spouse, your partner helps you along the way, but it's, for me, any success that I've had has been in deep partnership with her. We consult each other, we work through issues. It's both the emotional side, but also the intellectual side of working through things. Having foresight, career changes, switching industries is not an easy thing to do. And you need that, it's more than support, you need that full engagement. At least I needed that full engagement. So for me, that has been, the great blessing for me. And I have two kids. The thing that I think about a lot is that no matter what we do in any of these positions, at the end of the day, the people who are going to, in some way, carry forward, your spirit, your sense of kind of being connected to the world. It's going to be your family, however you define that. And so for me, that is at the core of everything I do. It's not in the backdrop, it's actually right there at the center of everything I do and top of mind. Yeah.
Well, having met both of your wives and spent time with both of your wives, one thing is clear, you are both married well above your heads.
That is true.
Agreed.
Yeah, yeah.
That's true. I mean,
Neither one of you are particularly good looking, and but that said,
True.
both of your wives are wonderful looking. Let's go to the young man. That's a true statement. They have clearly married, so please make sure you go back and tell your wives I said that.
I will. I may need to sound like she was easy, and she's not easy at all.
No.
It's just but she's beautiful.
Young man, your question.
Hi, I'm Sawari Kangalu, working for Manulife John Hancock as a director of U.S. retirement pricing. And both you guys and DL kind of talked about working hard, outworking the competition.
Speak closer to the mic.
Working hard and outworking the competition. Mr. Williams, you said and talked about how you've had to give up some things and miss some activities of your kids and all these things. But truth be told, it takes a lot of work and a lot of effort and outworking the competition, which means you really grind, you work really hard to get to where you're at. But there must be some kind of balance in there somewhere, right? Because if we look at the statistics, it shows that black men are 50 to 70% more likely to have heart failure. So the amount of work it takes in to grind and to get to where you're at, right, which we're all, currently doing, how do you balance that and also have the time to put into your family, right? COVID was a blessing for us because for some of us young parents, we got to be able to be present while our significant others were having children, which is totally different. So you guys talked about going back to the office and all that. So how do you balance all that while being able to have a healthy atmosphere, right, for those within those roles?
Good question.
That's a good question. I'll go first. I play as hard as I work, so that's the first thing I'll say. We've been talking about the work side of it. But we do. I spend, we've got, place in the mountains. The two things that always make me feel small are the mountains and the sea. And I spend a lot of time in meditation in both those places. Also, you know how we are. It's easy not to work to stay fit. Right, and it's hard to fit the time in when you're working, but I bike, I hike, and so you have to spend time both being physically and mentally well, or you can't do these jobs, right? You can't. There isn't any way you can just work your way. You could work yourself to death, or you can work yourself and have the adequate balance. And again, it's going to take up your time. Something's got to give, right? But you have to spend time. You have to spend time being reflective. I talked last night about gratitude. I think gratitude is one of the most powerful influences in how you keep your mind well. You have to be grateful. I didn't create myself. You didn't create yourself. This place wasn't created by us. There's a lot to be grateful for. There's a lot to be grateful just being in the room. And so having gratitude, having balance, continuing to keep things in perspective, and knowing yourself. Knowing yourself what gives me energy. Every time I go to the mountains, oh man, fresh air, got my family, I'm on a hike. Those things to me are moving. And so having an opportunity to spend time doing what you love. I mean, I love to work. I love what I do, but I also love taking time to do other things. So you have to have that. You have to have that balance. You have to take care of yourself.
Was that to both of us? Oh, okay. Yeah, I think you said it all pretty much. The one thing I will touch on, you mentioned a word that Ed asked DL also, which is grinding. I think that is a mistake. This whole concept of just go hard without thinking about it. I actually believe you should do less and then obsess on what you do. Yeah. Do less and obsess. And if you do that, to quote Rick Ross, every day I'm hustling, but I'm doing it in the area where I know it's going to make a difference. And so what I often see is that sometimes we take this whole idea of being competitive and being focused and pushing hard, we spread it so wide that we end up in a really bad place. And mental health for men in general, by the way, and black men in particular, is at risk at levels that we've never seen. And I think that's only going to increase unless we figure out both how to do less, but then you got to find that outlet. And everyone has a different outlet. Like, you're never going to find me in the mountains when it's snowing. That's not going to happen. I'm going to be on the beach. It's going to be sunshine, little umbrella in my glass, something like that. That's good. But that's where I find my peace. You got to have a hobby or something that actually gives you an outlet that breaks from the daily grind. But you got to figure out first and foremost how to focus on the things that really matter and eliminate the extraneous things. Otherwise, it's never ending.
That's right. One of my best memories with you at PepsiCo was in Switzerland.
Oh, yeah.
Do you remember that?
Yeah.
We were at a management retreat with Mike White, who was the CEO of PepsiCo International.
In Los Angeles.
And it was a small group, it was probably 30, and I'm like, oh my God, there's another brother. Come on, let's go. And we're hanging out at the Beau Rivage Hotel.
Yeah, exactly.
Remember?
Yes, I do.
Having a good drink, and you said, man, this is a good life. You're right. You're right. It was a memory, and I remember that. And I think about those were some of the best times in our career. But in that moment, you're working, but you're not.
Exactly right.
I'm connecting. We're spending quality time together in a place that I wasn't sure. I was like, man, I can't believe I'm here.
Yeah.
And it was spectacular, and it was a great bonding moment. And I think about it a lot. Every time I come across your name, I'm like, man, that Beau Rivage Hotel was something else.
I know. They say we ain't supposed to be here.
That's right.
But we are.
Yes, sir.
So I wanted to touch on the empathy and how to leverage that to know your
Please
audience.
speak into the mic, please.
I wanted to touch on the empathy topic you mentioned earlier, about using that to understand your audience and context, and building self-awareness around your profile and within yourself. Can you talk a little bit about emotional intelligence and that role throughout your career? How do you leverage that skill set to do those things?
I use the word empathy. That's what it is. It's being self-aware. It's emotional intelligence. You can have super high IQ and zero EQ and be failed, right? And so I think you have to figure out a way to really think deeply about. My dad just used to say, "Walk a day in another man's shoes," right? You got to understand humanity. Everybody's different. I don't care if you're most of the people in the room are black men. We're all different, right? People have different needs, and so making authentic connections with people and understanding others, I think, is super important in any relationship. And Frank talked about, building, I think about it as networks. I mean, networks are powerful, and you got to have a diverse network. But to build diverse networks, you also need to be able to connect to people that aren't like you. I mean, in any organization, in any neighborhood, in any state, people are different, and you have to understand different cultures, different races, different genders, and different individuals. And so empathy is really about emotional intelligence. You have to be able to emotionally understand and connect with others. And it's been, for me personally, I think it's been one of the superpowers that has helped me navigate, corporate life, frankly, right? Yeah.
Good morning. My name is Gerald Grant III. I'm a certified financial planner with Equitable Advisor. My question is, on the road to success, how do you, as a young professional, how do you kind of walk the narrow line of being confident and bold while still having the humility and deference to understand what it takes to know that you don't know what you know?
Yeah.
And then also, as seeking advice and sponsorship from mentors like yourselves, what do we do to separate ourselves from our peers? Because I'm sure there's a long line of people who want you to be a mentor. How do we separate ourselves in those rooms?
I'm going to take the first part. Steve has a great answer to the second part, I think. I've been fortunate to have been around a lot of people who've been incredibly successful across multiple industries. Whether it's a famous singer, a major athlete, entrepreneurs, senior executives. And the thing that has struck me over time is that the ones, we see them at the finish line, and you see them on the stage with the trophies, or you see them celebrating, an IPO, but you miss everything that happened before. The story before is all about the process. The ones who are actually really successful consistently over time focus on the process of getting better. At Visa we call it the power of small steps, or atomic habits. That's actually where I would place my focus. It's not so much about, hey, I'm on the path to success. How do I get there? Yeah, you should have that vision in the back of the mind, but it's like, how do I get better today? Every single day, how do I get better? How can I learn? And you'll learn from places that you don't even expect. You can go into someone's office and ask them a specific question, but every conversation that you have is teaching you something. And so for me, I'd focus on the process, and for mentors, it makes it easier because sometimes you think the mentor is going to give you the answer. It's going to hand you the secret book. Open up the safe, blow the dust off of it and hand it to you. It's not going to happen. What will happen though is if you have a very specific thing that you're trying to address, you're in that process, a mentor can help you tremendously, can help you save time, can help point you in the right direction. And so my answer would be focus on the process of continually getting better, believe in this whole idea of the power of small steps. It seems slow at first, but it grows exponentially. Slow at first, but then all of a sudden it picks up.
Yeah, the only thing I would add, I think about mentorship. It's easy to talk about. It's much more complex than that. I think, and again, I'm going to go back to this network effect. When I got appointed to this job, they provided me with several developmental opportunities. One of them, and I remember to this day, there's a professor at Harvard Kennedy School, Julia Battaglia. She wrote a book called Power for All. Yeah. She onboards heads of state. So she's she's a power expert. Okay, and the thing you'll find is your network is the way you gain and give mentorship. I have people that mentor me that are much more junior than me. You can call it reverse mentoring. I learn more from generation I'm not a part of than they probably learn from me. And so I wouldn't think about, hey, who's that one person that's gonna help me? I would think about what's the network effect of people that you are connected with that can help you. Now, specifically to sponsorship, which is different than mentorship, the thing I would encourage you all to do, and Frank and I were talking about this in the back, I've had, I consider Butch a mentor. I do answer the phone when you call every time because I know I'm going to get something, either wisdom or coaching or something. But I think you have to have, and he's part of the network. He's not just somebody that is a casual, hey, you're going to help me with something. We have a connection that is pretty special. And if you think about in your company, I would look for people, again, people want people that are getting results or that they can put their stamp on or that they can believe in. And I use an example, again, back to Steve Reineman. I'll use an example. A lot of people there weren't people that looked like me above me. Okay, there weren't. And so to get the level of support from those that were different, it required what I talked about before. It required this consistency of delivering what I said I was going to do. And because of that, for whatever reason, right, I had several people, Steve Reineman, probably the chief of them, that said, this guy is really good. And he made sure everybody knew it. And he was chairman of the company. So anytime he's saying, hey, you need to look at this guy for this opportunity, you need to look at this guy for this opportunity. And so I say that to say, it's not just about having a mentor that can give you advice. It's about having a network that you can leverage for advice and then look for sponsorship from everywhere. Don't just think about, hey, there's a brother over there that may be able to help me with something that's a level higher than I am. Think about it in much broader terms. Is that helpful?
Yeah, but hey, in this process of reverse mentorship,
Yeah.
do not let them put you on a TikTok video dancing. Right? Don't do it. It's going to happen. Don't do it. It's not worth it. It's not worth
Don't
it.
do it. Don't do it. Good
Okay.
advice.
You good?
Last question.
Good morning. I'm Stephon K. James. I am currently leading marketing for our insurance side of the business at Nationwide, and I lead the direct consumer part of the business and product marketing. Quickly, I just want to say thank you, both brothers, for coming here and speaking to us. I was at leading global business at PepsiCo while you were there, and your careers were extremely inspiring at that time, and I'm really excited that you are still inspiring folks with your careers.
Thank you.
Quick question. I'm going to pivot on the same topic around advocacy and sponsorship. And I love the idea of your business results being what is driving that idea. Can you tell us, is there a way for us to think through our business results and how to position them in a way that attracts those sponsors like Steve Reineman for you, that enables the career discussion to be different about where you go next in your career?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think, and Frank, you take a kick at this too. I think I think really understanding what the KPIs are and what's important to the company for you to deliver. Because sometimes there's what's said and what's in your performance review, and then there's what's expected. And so I think really understanding what it is you need to deliver in whatever role you're in, and you do it to the best of your abilities is how I think about it. I think just getting by or delivering the things that are written is not sufficient. I really don't. And Frank and I were laughing. I really do think about it. I used to obsess about it. I don't obsess about it as much anymore. But I used to obsess about doing the job I was in. I'd never even, when I got this job, I was not focused on this job. I was obsessed about doing the job I was in better than anybody else could ever do it. What is going to be unique to me? What is my brand, right? What are people going to say about me in this job that nobody has done before and nobody's going to do after me, right? And I think about those things, and I think about what are the things they would say when I'm gone, when I'm doing something else. And that's how I would think about it. So don't just do the basics. And that's what attracts because it's just like, it's human nature. It's wow, he did that. And that's what will ultimately drive the flywheel of success. I'm convinced of it. It's worked for me. It's worked for others.
Yeah, I don't have much to add to that. I think, look, whoever is in a position of power to help you advance in your career, what they're looking at is your potential. And the biggest challenge I think we all have is that oftentimes you're going to sit across the table, probably from a middle manager who has the inability or maybe a lack of self-awareness to understand the potential in you. Can they look across the table and say, like, I see you as a CEO? The early seasons, right? Some people, it's going to be very difficult. So you have to frame that yourself in a way, right? And so get the results for sure, but it's also the narrative you're telling about yourself and getting other people to carry that narrative forward and so if you know what you want to do and possibly what you might want to do next or what you want to be, then it's helpful to kind of start to frame that narrative and then take that risk that Steve was talking about earlier and stretch yourself into these different areas. Someone's going to have to tell the story of you when you're not in the room, and you got to make it easy for them to do it.
Yeah,
Thank you.
that's awesome.
Gentlemen, you have been invited into a masterclass, if you will, in navigating corporate America and its success. Let's give a rousing round of applause to Steve Williams, FrankCooper. Thank you all very much. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.